Woo! It's the boy, Bubba Lutz, coming through. Hella clutch, flawless, can't be touched. It's your boy, Bubba Lutz. Yeah, I need that hot take. I need the truth and everything that is not fake. So tell me who's the goal.
Welcome back, Bubba Bunch, to another episode of the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast. This is episode 142. There's not really a title to this because I don't know what the fuck we're going to talk about. It's kind of one of the reasons why we haven't done much this week. You know, like we've done one episode where I talked about Black Lives Matter, the COVID situation, and you know, my personal, you know, struggles and battles that I'm going through right now. But hey, man, like I went to today not thinking that we're gonna do an episode, but your boy got up, you know, played some Black Ops 4 because it's double XP weekend with the boys. Loved it. Went to go get a haircut. As you could see, Can you feel the freshness coming out of Bubba Lutz right now? I mean, I just feel so much better knowing that I have a haircut. And, you know, like, boys, guys, you ever have that feeling like right after you get a haircut, you get in the shower, you start to put on the shampoo, and you just start feeling like the back of your head? If you get a bald fade or skin fade, like you just touch it because it's just so smooth. You know, I could just ASMR like. I hope you can hear that. I love it. I love the feeling. They lined up the beard too. Oh, dude. And then I went to the gym right after. Don't even talk about what we've eaten today, guys, because it's absurd what we've been eating this last week. Like the system is just feeling phenomenal. Went to GNC, bought some supplements, some protein. Oh, right? Like today, had a granola bar, just to start off something light. You know, I'm not a big breakfast eater. Came back from the haircut, and then ate a bowl of oatmeal, strawberry, and cream, but with some bananas in it, because I fuck around like that. And then, after the gym, right, after taking some pre-workout, some creatine, came back home, made myself a smoothie with the protein in there, fruits, you know, like yogurt, peanut butter, some almond milk. Y'all fuck around with almond milk? And then, not only that, but we ate takeout. But, I mean, the first option, everyone was like, let's eat McDonald's. I'm like, whoa. Hold on there, big fella. Slow your roll. You got too much dip on your chip, right? So then I was like, look, let's eat some Chipotle. Like, let's get some protein in. And they're like, nah. I'm like, How about a McAllister's Deli? I got myself a nice grilled chicken salad with a ham and cheese sandwich. No sweet tea, no nothing else. Ate the protein shake, or drank the protein shake, and then finished it off with another supplement. And guys, I mean, like this little like tripod thing or little thingamajigger holding up the webcam. It's on my bed. I could flip over this bed right now if I could. I could. I'm just trounced in fucking energy right now, and it feels amazing. And a good type of energy. I'm not going to crash or anything. It's just, you know, you feel so productive, and you just get the ball rolling. So here we are. There wasn't going to be a podcast, but there is. And I've just, like, rambled on for, like, what? 3 minutes about how good I'm feeling. I mean, think about it. Just a few months ago, we were on a podcast where I shaved my head and was talking about how much I hated being inside. We're going to the gym, man. We're going out and buying some good food, some healthy food, getting some healthy supplements. It's a great feeling, man. Yeah, man. So, sports. I mean, is there really much to talk about other than the NBA restarting in like a month and a half? That's a struggle, man, because you gotta think there is reports saying that a lot of these players may not come back for the season because whether or not they don't feel safe or they don't really understand why they're restarting the season. And, you know, some players are back from injury, but they don't want to play. It's a tough situation because you really got to think about it. It's that a lot of these players that are leading the way in restarting this season were basically the all-stars. You got LeBron James, you have, Kawhi Leonard, you got all these different names that are without a doubt wanting to come back and they want to play the season. Yet I've talked about this before, and I've said that the reason why they're bringing it back is not for the love of the game. It's not for anybody's, happiness other than the money side of it. People want to make money. The government wants this, type of recession to go away. And the best way to do that is to bring back sports, which is so invested in money and the deals, the money you can bring in if it does come back. It's not the first sport to come back ever since this whole COVID situation started. I mean, think about soccer. They're doing their thing, but ultimately it's hard because it's not American soccer. It's not anything near here. And unless you're a dedicated fan that wants to wake up at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., on a Saturday morning, you're not going to watch Borussia Dortmund. You're not going to watch Juventus. And unfortunately, I love European soccer, but I ain't getting up at 7 a.m. to watch a soccer game. It's just not my thing. And no other American really. If I don't do it, then there's a lot of other people that don't do that. There is a dedicated fan base for sure. And I applaud them because it's a great game to watch. Yeah, it's just not my thing. I want to watch prime time. I want to watch, midday. Once I'm done with everything, I just want to relax and watch a game of basketball, a game of football. That's my type of thing, right? So, really, for America, this is the first sport to really come back and to say we are going to rebuild this whole non-sports thing and bring it back. Do I think that's really cool? Yes, and I'm excited to see the NBA because I haven't really watched much of the NBA this past season, and that's just because there's been other stuff that's been going on, or I'm not just super invested into it until the playoffs. But with the way that they're bringing it back, which is probably going to be at the end of July, you're talking about a playoff race to get into the 8th seed in the Western Conference. I believe that the Eastern Conference is already settled on 8 teams. And so the West is the one deciding the 8th seed because there's a lot of teams pretty close to each other. Not every team is coming back, which I think is a good thing because if you suck, then what's the point? And then you're going to play did they decide that it was going to be at Disney, at Disney World, whatever? Which is cool because it's a new venue. And it's going to be a limited amount of people there. You may have some families there as well. It'll be interesting to watch. I want to see more of the in-game side of it to where the players are talking to each other. You start to hear the coaches in their timeouts. I want to hear everything that's going on. Now, if it's on ESPN or ABC, you're not going to hear the cuss words that are going to come out of their mouths, which a lot of the time probably happens. Which is tough because I want to hear that. I want to hear LeBron say "fuck off" to, let's say, Giannis in the finals. Why not, right? You want to hear it. You like the soundbite. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. It's just, to me, it's tainted because of the way that this is going ahead with everything going on in the world. Basketball should be the last thing on our minds. And then you can take into consideration that a lot of these players are fighting back. They're going to do a Zoom call. I saw a report right before this that they're doing a Zoom call of unifying everybody that wants to proceed with the NBA coming back. But guys like Kyrie Irving, who are coming out and said, maybe this is not the best idea. Maybe there's a lot of concerns that we need to take in consideration. You see it in every sport. And to judge Kyrie Irving on that is a terrible thing because there is a concern here. Watching the first fight for the UFC coming back, and one of the fighters was positive for COVID. I'm sorry I'm burping a lot. When you talk this much by yourself, it happens. And plus, I just ate a lot, and so it's coming back up. But anyways, so What's another sport that did that? Like the MLB, the UFC, like, I mean, they're having a lot of issues. They're gonna do Fight Island soon next month, and their 251 card is stacked. It's stacked with championship bouts, but they're not the most interesting fights in the world. We'll get to more of the UFC right now because there is a hot topic there. But overall, what I'm trying to get at with the NBA is that, look, everybody's going to watch, right? Everybody wants to watch basketball and wants to watch sports again. And I'm excited to see it too, but at the same time, when we're watching it, we got to think there is so much other stuff going around the world that you can't just say like, oh, we're back to normal. Oh, we can go back to sports again. It just ain't going to happen. Shout out to NASCAR, by the way. You don't get many shout outs from NASCAR on the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast, but you are going to get it today. Episode 142, the first time we talk about NASCAR on the podcast. Bubba Wallace, hey, Bubba's think alike, right? You know, great minds think alike. Bubba Wallace coming out with the I Can't Breathe shirt, and then having his car painted to Black Lives Matter. An amazing thing. And for a small amount of drivers in NASCAR that are not white, that is predominantly white, and the fans are predominantly white, it was basically made by Southern white people who, enough said about that. But for NASCAR to come out alongside Bubba Wallace and speak out on these terms, Bubba Wallace painting his car, Black Lives Matter, NASCAR banning Confederate flags, which if you've taken history, and I've taken Texas history, my professor did a phenomenal job of explaining all these different, symbols and subjects about racism, and one of them was the Confederate flag. Confederate flag was made based on racism and discrimination. And it was a part of the KKK for a long time. And so when you have a sport that really exploits that and really kind of celebrates those type of things, and I'm not saying like NASCAR is racist, no, but you got to think like it's mostly Southern white people who have beliefs that aren't in the best interest right now, and they're waving Confederate flags all over the place, and they're the ones that are saying shut up and you have rights, like we're not racist. And I'm trying to be nice here, but you gotta think, right? Like we all on the same page here. Is that when you think of NASCAR, there's an image of like rednecks, of like Southern white people who have an accent, and those are mostly those states that are really racist. And it's definitely a hard time for that to happen. For you to have that type of image. So for NASCAR to come out and to ban the Confederate flag, because that like NASCAR fans, most of those NASCAR fans are going to be upset about that. Like, I'm not even going to do an impression because that's not good. But yeah, and then you got to consider that a lot of those drivers are mostly white. So you have a few, minorities as drivers, and for Bubba to be African American, that's a huge thing. That's a great protest in a way, but it's also like recognition, especially in a sport, in an environment that doesn't preach on Black Lives Matter, doesn't preach on equality for everybody. It's a hard sport to do that in, for sure. And then you had the driver who retired, essentially. I can't remember his name. Who cares about his name, right? Like, he shouldn't even be mentioned on this podcast. But he retired saying, look, I'm not going to race one more thing if you're going to ban Confederate flags, if you're going to, protest and all that, if you kneel during the national anthem. I don't want to be in this sport. Go right ahead, dude. Like, anyone cares. You didn't win a race. He was irrelevant in that sport. But then you look at him, you're like, oh, I see why. White guy. One of the whitest guys you ever see. And for him to say that, well, that's who we're trying to get rid of. That's who we're trying to exploit and expose. And for that to happen, for NASCAR and Bubba to come together and to do that, it's a great thing, and this is a step in the right direction for sure. So enough about that. Because we talked a lot about it on the previous episode, so if you haven't checked that out, please do. And so I think we'll make this a shorter one. And I say that every time, but it's always long. But I'll keep it short this time. The last thing I want to talk about, and it's the thing I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time since we were briefly talking about the UFC, is Conor McGregor retiring for like the third time in 4 years. Whoop-de-doo. Look, man. Okay. When Conor McGregor was on top of the world, pre-Mayweather fight, I mean, the double champ, this man could do no wrong. And I was all for Conor McGregor. The man could do no wrong, and I loved watching him. He was so entertaining. Then the Mayweather fight happens, and I'm like, still, I'm a big fan. He basically breached a gap between two sports and made a super fight that made both sides a lot of fucking money. Here's the thing, is that once he came back, he retired the first time after the Mayweather fight because he's like, I'm done with fighting. I think there's more to my life than fighting. Then he came back. And then, you have you had the altercation with the bus and the barricades, which almost cost a lot of people their careers, including Michael Chiesa, who had like glass in his eye and almost lost his eye, which is not a fun thing. But then these last few years, he gets out of control. You start to see the video surfacing of him punching an old guy in a pub for no reason. Then you have another video where he takes the phone from a fan and just slams it on the floor and doesn't feel sorry about it at all. He goes to jail like twice for those reasons. And then like you start to lose the interest. Like for me, it's like I love him as a fighter and I want to see him fight more, but as an influencer or as a role model, he's not that. Like that's a bad example to set for your kid, for your wife, and for a lot of people that look up to you. And I'm not like trying to judge him at all. Like he makes his own decisions, and who am I to judge someone that is super successful and they've worked hard to get to where they're at? But you should understand, like, you have an audience. You have all the eyes on you. And what you do is outrageous things, outside of the octagon that hurt other people. Why did you have to punch a random old white guy in a pub? Why did you have to take a fan's phone and destroy it? Just to be like Conor McGregor? Just to be like that outrageous, like outspoken character? Think about like Colby Covington. Colby Covington is an asshole. Is a douchebag. But he backs it up in his fights. He's not in the last fight, but like it stays in the fight game. It stays like inside of there. Once you don't hear about Colby Covington, well, at least I haven't heard about anything that he does outside of the sport. He's just like a character, right? But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, if I talk to him, like he'd be a nice guy, right? And Conor, at the end of the day, yes, he could be a really nice guy, and I feel like once he had the Cerrone fight, the Cowboy fight, he came in there saying like, "Oh, I'm a changed man. I have to be different. I have to be more controlled." And he was very respectful in that fight against a respectable opponent, a legendary guy in Cowboy Cerrone. And he beat him outstandingly. He beat him in a short fight. And he went over and immediately, congratulated him on a good fight and respected him. Also respected Cowboy's grandma, which is nice. And I felt like, all right, this is a good starting point for Conor to come back in. All the talk, though, about like him Khabib number 2 or Nate Diaz number 3, I was kind of just like, hesitant to say that because you can't just give a guy that did all of that he gave everything to the sport and he made UFC very relevant across casual fans. And you can't take that away from him. Yet you got to sacrifice something. You got to punish him in some way because this man went to jail twice. And he's done a lot of bad things ever since the Mayweather fight. That doesn't look good on the UFC. Yet, what I have a problem with is the UFC or UFC fans pushing him toward the title fight already. He does not deserve a title fight at all. Not in this instant. Look at the divisions that he fights in. It is stacked across the board, man. You got Nate Diaz. You got Jorge Masvidal. You have a stacked amount of guys. Khabib, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, who just won the interim title. And for you to say, like, oh, since he beat Cowboy, let's put him against Khabib. All right, let's put him against Justin Gaethje already. Like, that's unfair. For a lot of these guys that have been fighting, constantly ever since Conor left, and they're not the draw that Conor is, for sure. Like, no one's going to be Conor. Yet, for him to just come in, after saying he retired twice, and being in jail twice, and beating a guy in Cerrone who may be past his prime, but loves to fight, so you give him the fights anyways. I respect Cowboy Cerrone, but it may be toward the tail end of his career. And Conor's just way above him. As far as athleticism overall, Conor is a better fighter, and he deserved to win that fight. Yet, you can't say, oh, since he beat Cowboy Cerrone, let's give him the Khabib fight. No, because it's the same argument that I have with John Jones or with Greg Hardy. These guys did bad things outside the octagon. They have done bad things, and they should be punished for that. Let's take into consideration John Jones. John Jones has shot himself in the foot maybe 3 or 4 times. And I can endlessly go on about why John Jones does not deserve the platform that he has. And he's complaining still. He's over here saying, well, if you're just going to do this, Dana, then just release me on my contract. I'm like, dude, how can you say that when they've given you chance after chance after all the things you've done? After all the things that you've done to damage the sport and the image of the UFC, and for you to come out and say, oh, well, I deserve better. You barely deserve to be in the sport. You are the greatest fighter that I've ever seen in my lifetime. John Jones is the greatest UFC fighter I've ever seen. But he could have been a lot better and have a better legacy if he didn't screw up his damn career. He has screwed up his damn career. There is always an asterisk next to John Jones' name. No matter what argument you want to make, whether it's outside or inside the ring, he has a terrible division, and he needs to move up to heavyweight. That's where he'll prove he's the best of all time. Whether it's, imagine if he would have beaten DC twice if he wasn't on some type of drug, whether it's cocaine or PEDs, or if he wasn't involved in that hit and run, or if he's not complaining about his contracts, whatever the case may be. The man has been given chance after chance, and he's not appreciative of that. At least in my opinion. Like, the perception is he's all about himself. He's cocky. And for him to be in the sport is a miracle. Because he doesn't deserve to be considered one of the greatest of all time with everything that he's done. So I feel like that's the same argument. Not to the same extent with Conor. But you got to think, like, you can't just plug Conor back into the picture of the UFC and say, well, he's going to draw us money, so we have to put him in the fights. That's such a horrible thing. I get it. It's money at the end of the day, and it gets you views. But at this point, like, Conor keeps retiring. Like, he's the Brett Favre of fighting. You just can't just keep saying, oh, I'm going to retire. Oh, I'm coming back. Oh, I'm going to retire. But I'm going to challenge you again. Didn't he, like, accept an offer to fight someone? Like, was it Usman? I think it was Usman, to where, like, they called each other out on Twitter, and they were like, just start the fight. Like, sign us up. And yet, like, right after the fucking UFC event last week, he's like, oh, I'm going to retire. Who cares? Who cares? You fought once in the last, 3 years. Who cares, Conor? You know what? Conor can do his own thing. Conor's going to do his own thing. I'm sick and tired of it. It gets annoying after a while when it seems like he's feeding for attention. That's the type of character. He's going to draw attention. But there's a good and a bad way to do it. And I feel like he's doing the bad way of doing it over these last few years. So, Conor, you can do whatever you want. This division that you're supposed to be in, with Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Khabib, it's fine without you. I'm going to watch those fights because I love those matchups and I love those guys. The UFC is doing better, and they're making the most of it. I'm excited to see Fight Island. I really hope it's actually on the beach, seaside, and, they fight outside. It may be humid as fuck, and it may not happen, but I'm all for it, man. I am all for it. I mean, this next card is going to be pretty good. And there's a lot of fighters that many people don't know about. And you talk to my boy Bobby. He's my UFC guy. Watching some of these guys, they're so talented, but they just don't have the platform or they don't have the charisma that a Conor or Colby Covington does. And that's sad because not everybody has to be Conor. Not everybody has to be Colby Covington in how outspoken they are or sound bites that they make that go viral. But they just do it with their fighting. And I'm all for it, man. I'm going to continue to watch UFC and enjoy it because it's been the most consistent sport so far, and they're doing fights every weekend. I'm not watching them every weekend, but the good fights I'll watch. And there's a lot of good fights coming up. There's a lot of good fights. This past weekend with their pay-per-view, there was a lot of great fights other than the main event. But Sean O'Malley, keep your eyes on Sean O'Malley. He has rainbow hair, looks like 6'9", but the dude is a freak in the ring. Then you have Cody Garbrandt, who's making a comeback. He looked really good in his last fight. I can't remember the other guy's name in the bantamweight division. Aljamain? Oh, I hope I'm not botching it, but he fought last weekend, and that man looked awesome. I mean, he looked fun to watch. So I'm excited for the UFC past Conor. And if there's somebody that wants, dude, you can literally go on Twitter and just ask him for a fight. I guarantee he goes for it. He'll say he'll fight and he'll train for it, and then he'll just retire 2 weeks later. Who cares, man? I mean, I just been off the bandwagon for so long. A lot of casual fans will just say, "Oh, Conor McGregor is my favorite fighter." Of course it is, because it's the only one you know. But yeah, who cares, man? He's done great things for the UFC and for MMA. And you can go back to his old fights, and it's a journey, man. It really is. It's fun to watch. The documentary they did on him was amazing. But right now, man, I'm just I'm tired of Conor. I'm tired of Conor saying he'll fight or saying he'll beat up this guy and then never do it. You've beefed with Nate. You've beefed with Jorge Masvidal. You've beefed with Usman. Yet you're not going to show up come fight day. You're not going to show up come training. So just shut up and shut your mouth. You're all talk on Twitter right now. And I hate it. I hate it. I think we're done. 30 minutes? That's a good way. For going from no episode to this, I think I've spoken my opinion on a lot of things. So that's going to do it for episode 142 of the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast. Hopefully next week we'll have some guests lined up and have some more news to talk about, because it was a pretty light week on sports. But we'll come back, and I guarantee you I'll put out some episodes next week for sure. And you'll see me just, vibrating. Well, pause. Vibrant, I should say. With energy, with enthusiasm, because, I'm on the right track. Plus, I start work next week, so we'll see how we fit that into the schedule, but I'll make it work. So thank you for watching or listening to the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast. 78 subscribers on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and tell your friends we're on the road to 100, and I am super excited that we're going to reach that milestone soon. I hope so, and I believe in it. So please, please let everybody know about the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast. And If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow the podcast on there and to support it on social media. So thank you so much, guys, for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on the Bubba Lutz Sports Podcast.
Tell me who's your top 5 quarterbacks right now, dead or alive, huh? And how much do you care about a ring if the best player got carried by the team? Now would you lose if it been a better draft pick? And do you cuss when your team get their ass?